So Remy, tell me why you can't be strong without a power meter.
Well, you know, you can't be strong without a power meter because you can't look at a computer and it tell you how many watts you're putting out. You can't be strong without a power meter because the computer basically dictates what you're doing on the bike. And if somebody tells you you can't go 500 watts in a sprint, then you can't go 500 watts in a sprint. But you're only gonna know that because you're looking at the computer. You're gonna be like, I can't do that, so I can't go any harder, so I'm not gonna try. The first 2 years I started cycling, I rode so much. And the first 2 years I started racing, that very first year I went from a Cat 5 to a Cat 3, and that year I rode 11,000 miles. Didn't lose a lot of weight, but I got really strong and I rode off a feel because I did all these like big rides, and every time I rode I went hard, and I knew by feel how hard I could go. Do I think a power meter is beneficial? Of course. I think it's great when you go and you do a segment or you do a climb and you do a really good time and you're like, oh wow, like that was great, and then it actually tells you this was your average power for that. So then therefore you could go to a hill and be like, okay, well I'm gonna try to now stare at this and try to do a better wattage, and then you can train from that. But as far as like racing goes, when you're in a race, you're not looking at your power meter. You don't have time to look at your power meter. You're gonna crash if you do, because you're worried about everybody bumping elbows, going under your arm. Like me, I'm a tall guy. There's people going under my arms when I'm racing because they're doing what it takes to get to the front, and they're squeezing in every spot possible to get by. And the other day, so I've been riding Doi Satep here in Thailand, having all this adventure gearing. The very first time I went up it, I was just like, oh cool, I got a 42 in the back. Like, I'm just gonna keep spinning, and I'm gonna spin to the top. So yes, did I get to the top without using any legs? Of course. It was higher cardio, I was a little more out of breath, kind of like redlining, but I wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was going super fast. I did a 41-minute time. And so I was like, yes, I had gravel tires, but still, like, the next time I went up, I was like, oh cool, I did it in a 39 with road tires. But still, I felt like I was spinning too high. Spinning equals winning? Of course, but you gotta spin to an extent. If there's a lot of beginners out here that are riding and they're just thinking, I have a 40 cassette, they're all spinning. They're not grinding at all, they're just spinning up the hill, but they're not going anywhere. So it's kind of like driving a car, you know, riding by feel, going up a hill, feeling where you're at. You're not gonna go up a hill in 5th gear. You're gonna go up a hill in 1st or 2nd gear, but you have to find the right RPMs, just like you would on a tachometer. You gotta go, so like if you're spinning and you're doing 120 cadence, but you're only putting out like 250 watts, and you click up and you go down to like a 95, 100 cadence, and then you're in your sweet spot and you're doing 330 watts, that's gonna be more beneficial because you're gonna go further with what you have. So you have to find that proper gear ratio to do so. And so that's what I've been trying to work on, because last time I PR'd of 37 minutes, which was 2 minutes faster, and what I did was in the flats, I cranked down the RPMs, and therefore I was a little bit smoother in the flats. Then right when I got into the hills, I dropped it back up and started spinning in the light gear and kind of building to see how I keep that consistent cadence. Therefore, it was the smoothest ride up the hill, and I smashed my time, but it didn't feel like I did, like physically. I wasn't so gassed out.
So you're saying you did all that without a power meter and just on feel?
Did it all on feel, no heart rate, no power meter, no cadence meter. For me, a power meter is great because I like to see what I did afterwards. The thing that I found most effective for myself when I had a power meter last year, I trained for 6 months with a power meter, was the cadence. Whenever the cadence was right, the power came with it. So all